Welcome to Love to See It, a podcast about the glory of being an English major.
Yes, thank you to Kathy for explaining direct objects to Brian. That was a gift to all of us.
Yeah, they say that English degrees are worthless, but 50 years later, to be able to cut someone like Brian down to size on national podcast and YouTube, that's real value added.
I agree. I think they should promote English majors with that clip.
100%.
Like,
they should
see?
meme it. So, yes, today we're discussing the interestingly executed podcast / YouTube video reunion of Bachelor in Paradise season 10. I believe they called it like Bachelor in Paradise Unplugged. Like we're in a coffee shop and they're just putting on a little acoustic performance for us.
I mean, I will say that the audio quality was akin to I just ran over to a coffee shop, plugged my mic in, didn't check what the background noise would be like, and then put it out unedited.
Yeah, exactly. And normally, I hear the sweet strains of Fast Car, and I can overlook that. I'm like, at least I'm listening to a fun song and some strumming guitar. But this is not how I like my reunions to be produced, I have to say, upon reflection.
Same. So before we get into it, we wrapped up our coverage of Love is Blind UK Season 2 over on Rich Text. And we just released this week, belatedly, an episode looking back at the final season of And Just Like That. So you can find all of those episodes over at claireandemma.substack.com. We'll also have coming soon an episode looking back at the final season of The Summer I Turned Pretty after that wraps up. A lot of exciting stuff on the docket.
Yes, we're finally getting back into the real scripted TV trenches. I'm so excited for what Rich Text has coming this fall. So let's discuss this reunion. I sort of thought it might be a bit much to even have a whole podcast dedicated to the reunion. And I think that is what is signaled when you release your ABC TV show's reunion in a 2-part podcast and then a later YouTube drop. Like, you're just signaling that it's not important. You're like, literally, this could have been an email, so we made it a podcast. Like, we couldn't make this reunion an email, so we made it a podcast instead. It doesn't matter. You can skip right over it.
But honestly, there was a lot going on here, and the real frustration I found myself grappling with is the fact that it was just not produced well.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we know the challenges of audio production.
Yes.
We've had ups, we've had downs over the years. We've been lucky to also work with many really amazing audio engineers and producers, and we know that it can be tough to probably set up like 20 people with their own individual mics in one podcast studio and get a really good audio quality going. However, technology has come so far, like, why were they not all mic'd? Just like literally mic'd like they would have been for a TV show. I think that would have worked really well. Why, if you couldn't do that, why didn't you have them use podcasting mics instead of these sort of standard dynamic mics like you would use? Imagine you are putting on a talent show at your middle school. That's the kind of mic that they're using.
I mean, here's the other thing. Those mics, which can be handheld, do the job. It's like what we use for most of our live shows. But you have to really instruct people then to speak directly into the mic very consistently.
And they're optimized really for live performance in a lot of ways. We use them for panels, as you were saying, for live events. They're optimized for the experience in the room, for not necessarily being able to hear everything clearly. Like, there's going to be a lot of sound around the audience, bustling. When you're isolating those and putting them out as a podcast, that can be tricky.
Especially when people are having side conversations.
Yeah.
And you neither have the audio capability to capture those side conversations properly, nor apparently to fully edit them out. And you also have a camera that there's not enough cameras to like capture and lip read and caption that conversation. It's just a real
Yeah.
mess. The other thing that killed me is when you're talking about audio, there's such a thing as room tone, right? Just like the
Yeah.
ambient sound in a room might be like an AC unit, street noise, etc. There's always a room tone. Often when you are recording something, you pause and record like 10 seconds of room tone so that that tone can be like isolated out of the audio. The room tone was fucking blaring in this, and it is something I noticed on when I went back and listened to a couple other episodes of Bachelor Happy Hour anyway, but we are not in the same room that Joe Amabile is in when he records. We're in a studio.
And
yet I felt like there was a loud AC unit on 90% of this reunion.
the audio was not cleaned up, and it does seem like part of the problem is that the mics weren't level. And also adding to that, as you point out, you really have to speak directly into the mic. Some people were using them on a stand and speaking further away. Some people were holding them up to their own faces, but then they would gesture with the mics while they were talking, and so they would go in and out. So there was a lot of variance in what kind of audio those mics are taking in. And then to even it out, I think we were hearing in post that they were kind of yanking up some people's audio a little bit, and that's going to make the
so
room
the room
tone
tone
louder.
is super loud.
We're not like experts on audio engineering, but we are experts on being really annoyed at the sounds in
Here's
our
the other
ears.
thing. I wouldn't hire me to
No.
edit the reunion for a television show, even if it's being done on a podcast.
Yeah.
Like
100%.
you know, we have experienced audio issues. We have gone through editors who are more and less capable. We don't have the budget of ABC Warner Brothers.
How did they not take some of that prize money that they didn't have to pay out? Some of that prize money that they saved by having Alex pick a random envelope and, oh no, she picked the smallest one. Sorry about your student loans. You saved all that money. Half of $250,000 you couldn't pay for better audio checks. You couldn't pay for them to be individually mic'd with mic packs and like lav mics.
No, it's actually, I found
you
it
do that for them for
astounding.
the entire season. I don't understand.
Right.
I don't know.
I mean, they flew them all out to Los Angeles for this reunion.
I guess that's where the budget went.
At this point, like, just have them all on Zoom on a fucking Riverside. I don't know. That's
No,
the level of
honestly.
audio quality. It might have been better, actually, if they'd been in different rooms.
It made me really sad that there was not a real TV reunion. I understand that there maybe wasn't a time slot because football was coming back and they were like, well, we can do something. We'll just put it up on YouTube. But like, respect the podcast form, respect the YouTube form. Like, you can do good, clean audio on those forms as well. And it's weird to have the official podcast associated with this major TV show seem so much more ignorant of how to get good audio quality than a lot of amateur podcasts.
Well,
honestly.
exactly. I found it
It's
like kind of
weird.
offensive as a podcaster. I was like, you couldn't do better than this. It felt like there was a real lack of care put into this reunion. And frankly, I think that everyone involved in the reunion deserved better. Like, they all showed up, they got glam for the occasion, they traveled.
They got glam to be like kind of shuffled together like they're doing like a choir performance in elementary school, like cheek by jowl with all of these little
Yeah, it was
mics
a fairly
on stands.
small studio for the number of people, I will say. But like, a lot of people put in the work. And clearly there were producers on hand. Like, people were doing their best. So I just think they should have given them a bigger budget. They should have put a bit more care into this. And also, if you're going to have subpar audio quality, you simply shouldn't be promoting the product as an audio first thing. Like, they had a rollout where the first part released just audio, then the second part released just audio, and then the YouTube. Like, I think some of these audio things become a little bit less noticeable when you also have your eyes to make up for some of it. Like, I mean, I still found it distracting when I watched the YouTube. I listened and then I also watched the YouTube. But it was crazy to me that they were like, no, everyone needs to listen to the audio only product in order to get the
What
scoop,
did they
and we're going to make it
do
abysmal.
they just really want to promote Bachelor happy hour?
I guess. But
I
they need
think
to
something
teach Joe and Mobley about room tone also, because I always hear it when I'm listening to him.
I mean, I do think that the thing that they need to do to promote Bachelor happy hour is just to make it a better podcast, but better better audio, better budget for audio. Why are they not in a studio? I don't know. But let's
Fine,
talk
that's
a
my
little
the end of
bit.
my rant. We can actually talk about the
Well, we also
content.
have to talk about the moderation and Wells. Wells.
I,
What was going on here? Because
there was no moderation, Claire. There was the bare minimum of moderation. Here's the thing. We saw Nick Viall hosting the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives reunion.
yeah.
Say what you will about Nick. He showed up prepared.
Yeah. And like pressing people, pressing lines of inquiry, pushing people to give context and details on confusing points that the viewer or listener might not be familiar with. And I don't know, I think maybe there was an assumption that like, oh, Wells is a radio guy, he's a podcaster, so he knows how to do this. I am also a podcaster. Hosting a reunion of like 20 people
It's
seems like
hard.
incredibly, it's like almost a different kind of thing, because you are managing so many different voices and trying to control the crosstalk, trying to make sure that there's a pause when you need to explain certain things that they're going to reference. We see that like a TV host even struggles with it if they've done reunion after reunion, like the Lachey's. Like there are some people who are really good at it, like Andy Cohen. But like Wells seemed to me to handle this a little bit more like a radio host where he just kind of sits back and lets the conversation happen. And
Oh,
then
he
every now and then
just
he like chimes in with his own thought. And then he's like, I have a question here from a
from a
viewer.
fan. I have a fan question. Okay, but could you not have interrupted to give context to a whole back and forth that just occurred, or a person who's just speaking extremely obliquely about something that maybe through context clues we can put together exactly what they're talking about? Like, no, press
Yeah.
them, say, hey, is there something specific you're referencing here? Or if someone says, that tweet really hurt my feelings, take a pause and say, okay, we're going to pull up the tweet here. Here's exactly what was tweeted when.
Right. What tweet? What do you mean? What tweet? By the grace of God, Emma and I happen to know what tweet was being referred to, but I would imagine many people did not. It was not quoted. It was not put up on the screen. It wasn't even explained in any more detail other than the tweet hurt my feelings.
Come
This
on.
is
Come
criminal.
on.
Like people need to have the context, and so many of these discussions just ended up devolving into like circular arguments back and forth between people or couples where they were just like restating their positions back at each other, talking over each other, talking around their direct accusation because they don't want to be offensive, and so it's very unclear what they're saying, or yes, referencing specific events or tweets or actions without naming them, without explaining them. And so a lot of it is just very confusing. And though he did step in occasionally to clarify or ask for more specificity, it was like rarely at the point when you really needed that.
Almost never, I'd say.
It would more be like, oh, Kat just explained that their relationship is fine now. And he'd be like, to be clear, how's your relationship?
Yeah.
Like, that's more the level of. I just got very frustrated. It didn't feel
Oh,
like
I
they had
was
prepared Wells. It didn't feel like they had sprung
prepared
for
the
an audio budget. It's like,
studio.
what were they doing?
I don't know. And it was
However,
honestly unfortunate because I think there was a lot of interesting stuff that was touched on during this reunion. It was more
100%.
substantive than I think we initially assumed it would be.
I did feel like they got into some interesting areas. Unfortunately, sometimes those dragged on too long or were too circular, but it still gave us some new insight to chew on. So, should we start with some relationship updates before we dig into like the real heart of things?
Yeah. So we get little updates on the statuses of all of the couples who left together. Alex and Andrew are thriving. So happy for them. They are adorable. She is planning to move to Chicago soon, to which I say, Andrew, why aren't you taking this opportunity to escape to Canada?
Always the assumption that you'll just move to the state. I'm sorry, like, President Trump is out there threatening to militarily, like, invade Chicago. Why would you wanna move there? I would move the other
I
direction.
hope that they get married and then Andrew can get his eventual Canadian citizenship.
Yeah, maybe
Do it
they've
for
had
all of
to
us, Andrew.
yeah, they have to be picky because it's like everyone wants to move here
Yeah.
now. Apparently they are splitting the money and they are putting it in a joint account to invest, even though the show told us that he gave it to her for the loans, basically, and he says he offered it to her to cover her student loans. She says she did not want to accept that full amount, and so they're just going to
Yeah,
treat it as sort of a nest egg.
yeah, it sounded like maybe I couldn't tell if she had used her half to pay down her student loans and then Andrew's half they were putting in a joint account, or if it was the whole amount. I couldn't tell. Also, I don't need to know every detail of their
I
finances.
need to see bank statements, okay?
But it was sweet. I totally understand why Alex would have felt like a little weird being like, yeah, I'll take all this money.
Well, and also to have the narrative being spread without her input,
Yeah.
really, that, like, she's just gonna hog all the money, which I thought it was very sweet if Andrew was like, "She needs the money more than me, and I don't want her to have that on her back," but, like, there were a lot of implications made by the editing of the show that she was accepting all the money, and if I hadn't done that, I would be like, "Just to
I
be
need to
clear."
clarify, it's in a joint account. Yeah, but it was very sweet. And it seems like they are in a really good place and are really good partners together and are like very much planning a future.
Yeah. Jeremy and Bailey are thriving. She's moving in with him soon, apparently. He says that he asked her to be his girlfriend before they left Costa Rica, and they decided to sort of start fresh after coming off the show. And to their surprise, things were even better once they
Oh,
left.
happy for them. So I guess Bailey, welcome to Brooklyn, unless they're moving out of Brooklyn. But if you're just moving into where Jeremy lives
Welcome
now,
to
welcome to
Brooklyn,
Brooklyn.
maybe. Dale and Kat are thriving.
Love this
So,
for them. And I
yeah.
did listen to them on the Vile Files, so I was aware that they were still together.
Yeah. I mean, I listened to it just this morning. So I guess the reunion was the first place that I saw them update about the relationship and they seem really happy. Spencer and Jess are thriving. She's going to be moving to Dallas. And I thought that one thing that was interesting about their update was that they talked a lot about how much they felt the challenges in the second half of the season really improved their relationship and helped them get to know each other.
A few
And
people said
Spencer,
this. I thought that was super
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, I was struck by that. I was like, I wonder if in part producers or like people hated this new format, please talk it up. But I also believe them because
Same.
I do think that a lot of couples have a great time sitting on the beach and you can talk a lot and get to know each other really well. But yeah, sometimes you get to the real world and you're like, oh, we don't work together well at all. We handle disappointment and conflict so differently. And so it is plausible to me that the challenges really gave them a chance to take each other's like kind of measure
Yeah, I
and
agree. I mean,
be
Dale and Kat
prepared.
talked about that too, and the way that like Dale handled disappointment when he lost that physical challenge, and he talked about like the feeling of, oh my gosh, at 36 I'm sort of feeling physically vulnerable in this moment for the first time as a person who was always like excelled in that area. And it like made sense to me when Kat talked about that being a moment where they could kind of move through that and like figure out how they responded to those disappointments or those like moments of frustration. I I also wondered if the fact that we have these like four couples that seem like in a really good place is both because they had these challenges to build their relationship and also they were able to work on that relationship without the constant threat of one partner jumping ship to someone else.
Yeah, someone also references how nice it was
I
that
think
no one
Cat,
knew was coming in.
yeah.
Yeah. And as a viewer, I thought it detracted from the
It was
excitement
less
of the
fun for
show.
us, but I do understand why that would set up a relationship for success.
100%. Yeah. No, I can definitely see that having them compete as a team versus having them sit there drinking mimosas, waiting for someone to come in and steal their man, that might be a healthier
Yeah.
situation for forming a
Better
partnership.
TV? Not necessarily. Healthier relationships? I would imagine so.
Yeah. Shawn and Alicia have broken up after dating for a
Shocker.
bit after. Yeah. This part was sort of funny. Alicia's like, I got some career opportunities in California and I won't make career decisions around a heterosexual man. And Shawn knows that. And I was like, yeah, Shawn, you got to be bi if you want to be her boss. Otherwise, I'm sorry, you're heterosexual. Take a seat. You're not invited. I was like,
Such a
why
funny
the
way to put it.
heterosexual part here? I don't.
Alicia does this thing where she speaks in such like, I'm a girl's girl, girl boss coded language all the time. She's like, I won't let a man hold me down.
But
And then
that's
I'm
not strong
like,
enough. I have to say a
okay.
heterosexual
Yeah.
man. No, I mean, it's I kind of I wanted I keep trying to be very open-minded to Alicia. I like to give the women honestly um more grace because I
Also,
know
I
how
do.
hard it can be to be a woman on reality TV and the way that things are it's so easy to turn you into a villain. And also it does just like really get under my skin how she's always using like the language of feminism to basically prop up her own very personal decisions.
And Shawn, who is openly MAGA.
Wait,
So,
really? What have I missed? I know his
oh,
dad is openly MAGA.
no, did you not see in our Substack chat someone pointed out
No.
that on his Instagram someone commented, I feel like you would fit in really well under the Trump administration with a little like nauseous emoji, and he responded saying, "Thanks, that would be amazing."
Uh, ugh. Okay, well, gross.
Yeah,
I
yeah. And
hate
then someone
that.
else was like, "Trump 2025, welcome to the crew, Shawn."
Yeah, I mean, it's like a very light smoking gun, but I hate that.
It's also
Doesn't surprise
unsurprising.
me if very like, whoa, if true, like, but sarcastic because I believe it. Um, Yuck. That bothers me. Anyway, I can't believe I missed that. But they're still close. She's like, he supported my decision and like we're
Yeah,
still
I'm
buds.
not shocked that they are not together. Seems like they were more friends than anything.
Yeah.
Co-conspirators.
Well, they would like us to know that it was a very real romance. And I'm like, I'm sorry, most of what we saw from Alicia about it was her being like, he's fine, but like I really am more attracted to Dale. And most of what we saw from Shawn was nothing. We never heard from him about Alicia really. So
Yeah, he was like, I gotta do politics like
yeah,
my
blame the edit,
daddy.
but like my daddy, who's so driven and I admire him so much and I want to be just like him. I want to reach the stars like my daddy, who's like rage tweeting at
Kathy
female
Hochul all
Democratic
day.
officials in New York State all day. So Brian and Paresa also broke up after briefly trying to make it work.
Love that for her.
They had different schedules and wanted different things from a relationship, which are not specified. And Paresa is now seeing someone. Love that for her. They seem fine, but I'm like, how are they? Like, there are a lot of unsettling, sort of veiled references to all not having been well at all with them. And
I
I'm like, I
know.
guess they're fine in the sense that she's out of it. And so it doesn't serve her to be mad about it.
That was my read, is that she was just like, you're not really relevant to me.
And Brian is like, see, we're good. Nothing was ever bad with us. We were fine. He and Parisa still seem to live in quite different realities about what was happening in their relationship.
Again, shocker.
Let's take a quick break. And when we get back, we will get into some of the more thorny parts of the conversation.
And we are back. let's get into more of the Bachelor in Paradise podcast YouTube reunion special.
Bachelor Unplugged, coming soon to your coffee shop. So there are some like sort of small things they touch on, like Dale has to speak to Dead-It. I think we've all moved on. We've learned that Dead-It was a thing that we just didn't know about.
Yeah.
And Dale had too much rosé and said it too many times because he was very heated. And he says that Dead-It is a thing in New York. And I'm like, New York is a very diverse place with many different subcultures. So I believe that. But yeah, he's like, we worked things out quickly after that conversation. It was fine. Kat says Dead-It constantly. Everything is good.
Look, it's such a beautiful thing when you can pick up the linguistic specificities of your partner.
It is. It's a sign of love. And then we get to Jeremy and Bailey, and they have to kind of defend their relationship because I think for many people, when everything blew up, but it became clear that Bailey and Jeremy were obviously together in Portugal from the way they were posting, that there was some backlash to her kind of standing by him.
Yeah, this to me was really like one of the meatiest segments of the reunion. And also I just felt
there were many parts to it.
Yes,
like,
it was a multi-part segment. And I just found myself feeling really bad for Bailey.
Yeah, I know. I continue to just feel that it's really tough for her that she ended up in this situation. And a lot of scrutiny seems to be getting put on her choices when she did not create any part of this situation and was in fact the last to find out about it. And so they're kind of trying initially in this segment to defend their relationship. And they talk about how at the beginning they weren't really locked in. They were just trying to really experience paradise and do something different because normally they're both the kind of person who just dates one person at a time and is really focused on them. But then they did keep choosing each other and they got to the challenges. And he says, by that point, we were really locked in and the challenges helped us like develop our connection and get deeper. And Jeremy says that it's been tough since with the backlash and he doesn't want to be judged for a few minutes that he acted like a child, but they're both thick-skinned and he's happy he has her. It's like, I don't know if
I think you're thick-skinned. I do think Jeremy.
I honestly don't even know if he's that thick-skinned because he's been very defensive, which I understand. And I myself am quite thin-skinned. So I understand being thin-skinned, but it is kind of, if you're thick-skinned, then, show it.
Then you should be unbothered. I will say someone who I genuinely think is thick-skinned is Dale.
Right. Dale doesn't seem to care at all.
Dale is truly just like, yeah, here are my thoughts, but it's fine.
Whatever.
Yeah. And I believe him. It's actually, I find myself so impressed. I'm like, how do you do it? I want everyone to like me all the time. And I will ruminate over one comment I get for like 5 years.
Yeah.
So
100%. Yeah. I think that it's quite human for them to struggle with the backlash, which has been very intense.
I did appreciate that Jeremy said he acted like a child and also said that, I don't want to be judged for that, but that's what I did. So I have to live with it. I was like, okay,
yeah,
thank you. I do appreciate that.
Correct. He does at the same time, and I noticed he did this also on Bachelor Happy Hour, as he did in the original show, he does still kind of defend his actions. He's like, of course I shouldn't have reacted quite that way, but she did say she was only there for me. And so I did feel betrayed when she went on a date. I understand now that she's allowed to do that. But that's why I acted that way, is because I felt so betrayed. He wants us to understand that he wouldn't have acted that way if Bailey hadn't done something kind of wrong a little bit. And he also says that he wasn't thinking at the time about how it would feel for Bailey to watch back, and he wasn't considering that they might even be together in the future. I struggled with how often this came up. I was hearing a lot from Jeremy in the reunion on Bachelor Happy Hour that he didn't think about the consequences of his actions at the time.
Oh, no, he clearly didn't.
But I'm like, I'm sorry, like, you're 31. You don't think about the consequences of your actions until later?
I mean, that's clearly an error. Yeah.
I don't know. It was something that went on for at least several days. So, like, ample time to at some
Right.
point think about the
And
consequences of your
something that
actions.
I actually wish that Wells had pressed on was separating the initial incident
Mhm.
from the chatter that happened later. And again, it was a bit hard to tell like how closely together all of these things happened, but I think like the later comments about Bailey upset me personally more than the initial phone call, which like they did clarify that all of the Susie stuff, like this all happened very early. And Jeremy did have a meltdown,
Yeah.
but it was, I think, like 6 days in.
Yeah. He claims on Bachelor Happy Hour that the Birds of Prey, Birds of Paradise challenge, where he talks to Brian, that was 3 days later.
Okay.
And he
Okay.
says between when it happened with Susie, the phone call, and when when Brian told Bailey was 8 days. Then he says, I didn't remember weeks ago when I'd said that to Brian. And I was like, well, it sounds like it was 5 days before, because I'm doing
Right.
a little back of the envelope math here. But like, of course, like when you want to say not that much time has passed, then you're saying it's only 3 days. But when you want to feel like something happened a long time ago, you're like, it was weeks ago. It was actually 5 days, right?
Yeah, no,
You're
they
doing a
do
little
this funny
convenient math.
thing where they sometimes speak in weeks, as in like show weeks, like rose ceremony weeks. And
Yeah.
then when they want to show you how compressed the timeline is, they speak in actual days.
Right.
And I think that's
Exactly.
why I've had a hard time.
It's like funny accounting, right?
Yeah.
They're
And
playing with the numbers. I understand that it probably felt to him like all this time has passed since that Birds of Paradise thing, and we've gotten so much closer. But I can also see why to Brian, you might say, well, all this time has passed and you still haven't
you
told
still
her.
haven't said anything. Right. Right. But again, I wish this was a moment, I think, for the moderator to step in and be like, okay, so you processed this. You acted like a child. Why did these comments continue? Bailey, how did it feel to you to
Yeah.
watch this back? Like,
Well, she
Wells
does
sort
say
of,
it's hard to watch back.
she does. But I think that like the job of the moderator would be to walk us through the whole arc.
Yeah.
And that didn't really happen.
Yeah. I would have loved more attention to detail on this. But she does say it was hard to watch back, and normally you don't have to see those moments of indecision your partner might have when you
Which,
just started dating.
yeah, that's really hard.
And I think it's clear that that's kind of the mental framework that she's settled on, which absolutely has truth in it. Um, which is like, yeah, it's normal for these things to happen. People have relationships that are wonderful that start this way, and you just never know. And so why would I lose out on something great because we just happened to have it filmed? Wells asks what he would have done if Susie did come back, and he says, I probably would have been like, oh, fuck, what did I do?
I mean, yeah.
I mean, probably. I mean, also easy to say now. Like, maybe you would have tried to pursue both of them. Like, this is the thing that also is irritating to me about the whole thing is that Jeremy thought he was going to get to keep pursuing both Bailey and Susie, or hoped he would, but he wanted Bailey to be locked in, and he feels entitled to that because, well, she said she was really focused on him, but you've clearly felt like it would have been okay for you to keep exploring someone else. So this is something you should at 31 be able to have a little more circumspection about, like that you're holding her to a different standard. And it feels like he's still a little hung up on like, well, she said the wrong thing.
Mm.
And so I had this reaction because she said that.
Yeah, it was a little hard for me to get a read on Jeremy, to be honest. I think
I was just hoping for more, to be honest. I was hoping for more.
That's fair. I do get the sense that they feel a frustration that they're like, our relationship is so separated from this point. But of course, you were on a TV show. You kind of have to, unfortunately, I have empathy that it must be difficult, but you have to go back to these beginning moments because those are things that are significant to the public.
Right. And
You know?
ultimately, what matters less than whether Jeremy has learned his lesson or like did the right thing to me is like what it signifies to have men treating women on major TV shows like this, like Perfect Match, to have men holding women to a double standard. And that is what it felt like to me. And I'm really
Yeah.
bothered by that. And so I do want that to be like named and taken seriously and not to be like, oh, but like she said this thing to me that meant it was okay for me to hold her to a
No, I
double
agree with
standard.
that.
So then they really get into who knew about Jeremy and Susie and didn't tell Bailey. And Wells asks who knew. Some hands go up. Alicia, of course, starts being like, raise your hands, raise your hands. You all knew.
She's so excited that she gets to be the morally superior one here because she did not know.
Yeah. And the thing is that a lot of people are raising their hand, but they're also kind of like, there are layers, there are levels to this. There's a lot of things that were shown on the actual show
That they didn't
that
know about.
they didn't know about. And yet and there were some things that they either knew directly from Jeremy or heard from someone else, which also secondhand hearing about this conversation and you're not even Bailey's best friend, you might be like, okay, so I heard from someone who heard from someone that this crazy thing happened, but like, what am I supposed to do with
And
that?
that's
But
sort of
then
what
that all gets
Spencer
kind of
says.
collapsed into like, oh my God, all this horrible thing was happening to Bailey and everyone knew all of it and chose not to tell her. It seems
Right.
heartless when you are being presented with these, like the stuff he said to Brian was really upsetting, but Brian was actually the only person who knew about that stuff.
Yeah.
So then it seems like everyone else had this impression of what was going on, but they didn't. And they're like, so we didn't know all of it.
I felt like this was just like a really hard position for like almost everyone to be put in.
Well, that's why I keep going back to the Jeremy thing. I think that it sucks to me that Alex was put in this position, especially Alex, who was
I
Bailey's
know.
closest friend by the end of the show on the
But
cast.
was Jeremy's close friend going into
And
filming
it sounds like at the time closer to Jeremy still than
than
Bailey
Bailey?
when she found out
Yes.
about this. He put her in a position of knowing about this and not telling Bailey so that it would be left up to Alex to decide whether she had to say something about
No,
it.
here's the thing. At the end of the day, it was 100% Jeremy's responsibility to make this known to Bailey, and he was being a coward and not doing it. And it was the wrong thing to do. It was absolutely the wrong thing to do. And I also think, frankly, which I said at the time, he should be grateful to Brian because I think their relationship would be a lot worse off if Bailey only found out about this when the show aired.
Well, Jeremy maintains that he was literally just about to tell her.
Okay.
Any minute.
Sure.
He was going to tell her that night, but he had to sleep. He was too sleepy. Actually,
He's
once a
over
man
30.
hits 30 even, you don't even have to be 35. Like, you could be 28. Suddenly you're getting too sleepy to have the conversations you need to have.
I get too sleepy to have hard conversations all the time, so I
Constantly.
get it.
Like, no, this is really important, but I
need
literally
to take
going
a
to
nap.
bed. So yeah, I do understand the frustration of Bailey's other friends on the beach that this is being put on them. Um, at the same time, that's not Bailey's fault either. Like, Bailey has not been going hard at anyone. Bailey has not been going around saying, I can't believe Alex didn't tell me. That was really fucked up. If anything, Alicia has been going much harder
At Alex.
at Alex.
Which is so odd because I thought that Alicia and Alex were friends.
Right. Before the show, they were supposedly quite close. And Alicia is pretty hurt that Alex even considered voting against her at one point, but she's out here on the Vile Files being like, I don't even know if there's an excuse for this. Even if you don't like conflict, you should still just tell someone. But that's just what I think. I think Bailey's been trying very hard to
Give grace
acknowledge,
to everyone.
yeah, like acknowledge her hurt in interviews that I've listened to, but also be like, it was Jeremy's responsibility, and I don't
Yeah.
really hold that against Alex or anyone for not telling me instead of Jeremy. And so I was very frustrated that it started to also get directed at Bailey. Like, why didn't you do more to defend your friends for not telling you?
This whole exchange just made me feel like sad.
I mean, we get to a point, like, we're deep into the conversation about who knew and didn't tell her. You know, Kat's talked about it. She's like, if I knew everything at the time, I would have given Jeremy 24 hours before I told Bailey. I just heard about the phone call by word of mouth. Like, Spencer's like, we were always hearing rumors and you didn't want to just constantly be telling people the rumors you heard about them. And finally, Bailey has to insert herself and be like, is it okay if I talk
Because she's
about
like,
this?
maybe, I don't know what you guys think. Like, maybe this is something I should speak to.
She's like, Wells, may I speak?
Like, again, Wells, you are the moderator. At a certain point, say, Bailey, how do you feel?
He was literally just about to, but he was so sleepy. He couldn't do it. And she says, yeah, of course, Jeremy should have told me first. I gave everyone a lot of grace because it's a tough situation. I know I'm the kind of person who would have said something, but I understand that it was difficult. And obviously, Jeremy is the one who should have told me. And what Bailey then says is that what upsets her is things that have been said since. And she mentions a tweet from Andrew. No one explains what the tweet is.
Was crazy. This
no
was so
one
crazy.
Quotes the tweet. No one puts it up on the screen. So we're going to help you out here.
Yeah. So there were a series of tweets. He tweeted, y'all do know we are seeing all the ITMs and conversations for the first time as well. If we aren't in the room when things are said, only those people know. And then, and I think this is the tweet that Bailey was really referencing. He tweeted, also funny that y'all are tripping about us not telling Bailey about a phone call that we have no context to, but okay with the fact she didn't tell Paresa that Brian was the one who asked her to go on secret rendezvous when she had no context to his intentions yet. So this hurt Bailey's feelings. She says that this ended up directing hate towards her.
Obviously,
which is
he's like, I
not
noticed you aren't
surprising.
harassing Bailey about this. Maybe you should be thinking more about how fucked up what Bailey did was. What are you doing, man?
Right.
Like, what do you think the outcome of this is going to be?
And so I think even us at the time, and like, I think Andrew is great, but I thought this was like a bad tweet and was obviously going to direct anger towards Bailey when I thought like Bailey had done nothing wrong in this situation. And he did end up, I believe, deleting the tweet, but the damage was done. It was out there. And this ended up causing tensions between Bailey, Jeremy, Andrew, and Alex.
She had posted like a long response on her Instagram stories when it happened.
And so had Alex.
Yeah. So it was... Andrew and Jeremy pissed me off so much this episode. I gotta say, like, this really pissed me off because, of course, this hurt Bailey. Of course, it was read as directing hate towards her. It literally was directing hate towards her. And he accepts basically no accountability for that. He makes no apology. And he feels justified because he was protecting his partner who was hurt. And listen, I'm genuinely, and I think Bailey is too, really upset and sad that Alex experienced that much hate. I think that it makes a lot of sense that he wanted to protect his partner,
100%.
that he didn't want her to be hurting. And so he decided that the best way to do that was to deflect or try to deflect or just create new streams of hate towards her close friend, another woman, just not the one who's under his personal umbrella of protection. Someone who has not been like talking shit about Alex, by the way. And I thought that was really, really, really unpleasant and gross. And the fact that he can't apologize for that in this interaction really pissed me off.
Yeah, I thought it was a real bummer. And what ended up happening is that every time Bailey or Alex tried to speak to this in what I felt was like a very measured way, like the two of them were doing a lot of like, this is what really hurt me. and I love you and I want us to be good and I value our friendship, but in the moment this is what hurt me and this is why. And then one of their male partners would jump in and like talk over them and inflame
Yeah.
the situation. It was driving me crazy.
I was infuriated, and I really felt like I understood if Bailey was having a hard time. It seems like this soured the relationship between Bailey and Alex for a time as well, and she wasn't maybe responding to outreach or wasn't making outreach of her own toward Alex. I think that if my good friend's boyfriend talked shit about me in public to protect her, I would be kind of like, I'm mad at him, and also, why are you good with this being done on your behalf? And if you're not good with it, then, you know, then what's going on in your relationship? That I'm being targeted by your boyfriend. So I understand there being a lot of bad feeling there on Bailey's end, to be honest. I think it's really fucked up that he directed all of this at her. And then it turns into, oh, well, Jeremy should be saying that he deserves the hate. Okay, so why did you tweet something about how Bailey fucking deserves hate? I'm sorry, I'm getting passionate. I'm using too many curse words. Why did you say that Bailey deserves the hate? Why are you tweeting about how people should be looking more closely about whether Bailey needs to be harassed?
Yeah, and here's the thing. You can tweet a bad tweet in the moment and be like, but then sitting back now, you should be able to say like that was like a really bad tweet and I'm really sorry.
Yeah, he's just like, well, it wasn't directed at you or like bringing hate to you. Well, actually, it was. Like, I don't care what intention you had in your heart. If you look at the effect and the text of the tweet, that is what it's doing. It called her out by name. It said, why aren't people hating on her for this? More in so many words. And then your defense is, oh, well, Jeremy should have come out more publicly and said he deserves all the hate, leave Alex alone. So that sounds like an issue you have with Jeremy, quite frankly. Jeremy says, well, I did take accountability on a podcast, and I said that it was my fault. And Bailey has also said that it was Jeremy's fault. It seems like they wanted Bailey and maybe Jeremy to be much more full-throated and out there in defense of Alex.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I think you are allowed to privately reach out to a friend and be like, hey, XYZ person is taking a lot of heat because of something that was your action. I know you're taking a lot of heat, but if you could like say something publicly, I would appreciate it. You can ask that of a person. But I think in the midst of all of this, like they were all taking a lot, and like you only can do so much to control the public reaction as an individual on a television show.
That is true. I do think that personally, I would have really respected Jeremy a lot more if I had seen, and I didn't see this and it's not referenced here, if I had seen him come out and say, any of the hate for not telling Bailey should really be directed at me.
I agree.
I told Alex in confidence. I asked her to let me, deal with it with Bailey in my own time. I assured her that I would do that.
Please don't come after anyone else on this. This is something that Bailey and I had to work through in our relationship. And Andrew kind of tries to say that. And Jeremy's response is, I don't have Twitter.
Oh my God. Dude.
Which like, okay. And Andrew's like, okay, but what about Instagram? Like again, you could have done more. He has said it was his fault on a podcast. But
he has. I mean, I think with Jeremy, where it comes in is that like he still seems like he wants to mitigate how angry people are at him. And part of that means that he does not want to accept any critique from like Alex or any sense that he should have maybe told people to back off Alex. He's like, well, then that would have made it seem like I was asking more hate to myself. And like, I'd rather that Alex take some of the hate is honestly how it came off to me. Like Alex says that she was hurt because Jeremy gave her the impression that he had talked to Bailey about the situation and they were good. And so she felt like that was handled. And that's one reason she didn't tell Bailey. And he gets very defensive and like kind of mad at Alex for saying that. And is like, I never said that. Like, what do you mean? I just feel like for Jeremy to want to keep mitigating how much blame he's getting by kind of letting some blame linger on, like, women who maybe could have done his job for him and told Bailey, but he would have been really mad at them, honestly, if they did that. Like,
Right. That's the other
is
thing.
gross to me.
Is like Alex was in kind of a no-win situation because she was going to betray someone either way.
Right. And I really understand her perspective, to be honest. She's like, all I knew about was this phone call. He told me he was gonna talk to Bailey about
She
it.
also says, like, going into the season, I knew that Jeremy was really interested in Bailey. So I believed that, like, whatever had happened didn't have malintent and that he was genuinely into Bailey.
Right. She was like, I didn't want to mess up something that I thought was going to be a really good relationship, that I knew he was really genuinely into, that he said he was going to have this conversation on his own
And
terms,
I
and I
totally
believed him.
understand that because it would be one thing if she was like, oh, I feel like Jeremy's fucking with Bailey. Then
Right.
it would be like, okay, well, you have to go like save her essentially
Right.
from this relationship. But she was aware that the feelings were genuine on both ends.
Right.
Like, I just found myself really feeling for Alex and really
Yeah.
feeling for Bailey. And I think that it is a really tough thing to be taking in that much public
Mhm.
opinion, especially negative, and that's going to maybe cause some need for space or some hurt. And I think that that is fair. Also, sometimes people can be hurt and it doesn't mean the other person has done something horrifically wrong. And I felt like both Jeremy and Andrew were unable to approach the conversation from that place and like just take proper accountability for the mistakes that they made, which again, don't make them bad people, don't make them bad partners, don't like mean that the friendship is irreparable, but just say like, this was on me. You shouldn't have been getting
Yeah.
hate. I care about our friendship and I'd like to move forward.
I was just very frustrated by the end of this, both because there was lots of confusing crosstalk and it, like you said, the women being cut off when they're trying to explain things, tweets being referenced and not clarified. They're talking in circles. No one's apologizing or really making any progress. But also by the end, I was really left feeling like, okay, we have these two women who ended up in a situation not of their choosing. And the men are just, well, one of the men created the situation. And the other one is lashing out at the primary victim of the situation to protect his partner. These men are just floundering around, making this situation worse and worse. And the women are the ones taking clearly the emotional brunt of it. Alex is
Yeah.
really wounded by the way that Jeremy and Bailey don't seem to feel like Alex was maybe like Alex and Andrew were supportive enough in the aftermath. Bailey seems really wounded that Alex seemed to expect her to go so far out of her way to like speak up on Alex's behalf when Bailey was having such a hard time and she was trying to be very, careful not to talk badly about Alex when she was asked about it in interviews. Andrew's saying, "Oh, someone asked in an interview like on Bachelor Happy Hour, what would you do if you had this information? You should have not answered it rather than say
That
I
was
would have done
crazy.
something different than Alex." Right? Like she's being told she's not even allowed to speak to her own feelings and she's trying to do so very carefully, I think, to
I
not
agree.
cast
I
blame on
listened
Alex.
to a bunch of these interviews in advance, and I think that from what I heard, Bailey handled herself as well as one could while still staying true to how she felt in the situation.
And what I see is Andrew doing this like macho protector swagger that is taking the form of lashing out at, again, the woman who is the primary victim of the situation. And Jeremy is sitting back and taking minimal accountability, like just enough accountability to skate by. And I found both of those ways of handling this to be very ultimately detrimental to their partners and the friendship between those women. And it really bothered me that that was how this whole thing ended up playing out.
Yeah.
And it seems like they both, like, really settled into their couples, and they're both, like, hunkered down in protective mode a little bit because of the onslaught of public opinion, and to see how both of the women especially are just like, "I wanted more from you because I was taking so much hate," and they're kind of saying that to each other, like, "I was having such
I
a hard time, I
know.
wanted more understanding from you, I wanted more outreach from you, I wanted more like, protection from you," and they're both suffering so much that
It
they're
just
like,
made
"How
me
could you expect that
sad.
from me?" It did make me sad, and it made me sad to see that this is driving a lot of conflict among the people who go on these shows, is just that they're so beaten down by public reaction that it is difficult for them to have healthy relationships with each other because they just have nothing left. We saw this a little bit on the Love Island reunion also, but the dynamic here feels more even-handed, and so it was more striking to me, the way that they're both just clearly like, "I was suffering so much from people harassing me that I couldn't be a good friend to you, or I felt like you couldn't be a good friend to me when I needed it."
Yeah. It was
I
just a
don't know.
bummer, and like I don't know. I also don't personally have it in me to hold like too much anger for any of these people, and I want them to just like be good with each other and be happy and like be
Yeah.
able to move forward in their relationships, because clearly these are two couples who seem to be doing really well, and like a group of people who seem to have built a good friendship, especially Bailey and Alex, and I just really hope that they are all able to like move on from this. And I also hope that as the public, we can put it to rest after this.
Yeah. I mean, I'm obviously gonna go right back to sending from my burner account hate
Yeah.
messages to Jeremy and Andrew. That's what I do all day on the
Obviously,
DL.
I know that's when you say you're taking a little nap because you're a sleepy late 30s gal, you're just
Yeah.
sending hate Instagram DMs.
Oh my god, leave them alone. Um, we also do get Andrew speaking to the backlash about his comments about bro code, and he says that it was out of context when he referenced bro code to Brian, saying that Brian shouldn't have gone to Bailey about what Jeremy said. It seemed plausible to me because I can definitely understand having this response, which is, all I said to Brian is that you're close to Jeremy. You should have gone to Jeremy first and said, tell her or I will. And I do think that while Brian did a certain amount of like, oh, well, he had so long to tell her, he never did. The reality is he could have done that if it
Yeah,
wasn't a gameplay
he could have
thing.
very much said, "Hey, it's getting ridiculous." Like,
Yeah.
I
If
don't
anything,
yeah.
that is what most of the people I think should have said earlier, or maybe would have said if they had known more about how much had been gotten done that they hadn't known about. Tell her I will. It's very simple. He didn't do that. And he's like, well, I don't think that was the right way to go about it. And I don't like the way you talk to Parisa.
I thought that was interesting.
I thought that was interesting too, because Brian gets very defensive and he says, Andrew, you never witnessed me speak to Parisa any type of way. I didn't treat her badly. And also, you never saw me speak to her and you weren't there for those moments.
I was like,
And
"No, I suspect he did see you interact with Parisa, and maybe he didn't like it."
it's also quite likely that he was hearing things because Parisa was openly miserable. And one thing that I found unsettling throughout the reunion, but that is never really dug into because Parisa clearly is nervous about really going directly at someone on this reunion, and she never really does so.
No, only obliquely. And yeah, I also think Parisa, you can tell she is the kind of person who's like, maybe I will process my feelings about things afterwards, but I don't like to be in open conflict.
Right. So, what I found unsettling throughout was how many references are just dropped in or not followed up on or glossed over. References to Parisa being miserable with Brian, miserable with their relationship, just wanting to leave, Brian not talking to her nicely.
Yeah, I think the most directly this is addressed is by way of Andrew saying like, I did not like the way you spoke to her.
He is the most direct reference to, I didn't think you spoke to her nicely. Yeah. No one else really references that super directly, but there's a lot about how miserable she was in their relationship.
Yeah, I was going to say then we have Kathy bringing up the
Yeah.
fact that Paresa was so unhappy that Kathy like mercy sent her home.
Right. And the thing that's odd to me about that is that Brian seems to have a completely different experience of the relationship than Paresa. And so I really wished that.
Again, a time for Wells to ask for specifics.
Right. I'm like, what do you mean? When did you see him speak to her not nicely? What kinds of behaviors were you noticing? Because Parisa, again, clearly, when their relationship comes up, doesn't want to
Get
go hard
into
at
it.
Brian, and she doesn't. But they seem to have completely different narratives of the relationship in their head. He thinks everything was fine, except one time he was really tired and covered in feathers. And so he snapped at her a little bit in the pool in the VIP suite. And he'd do it differently next time. But he
Whereas
was just
like
really tired. And Paris's clearly like, okay, but like we were all tired. And I really feel like we should have, there could have been an effort made to just handle that better. But like, no one is the sum of the worst thing they've ever done, right? Like no one's defined by that one thing, so it's fine. But it's clear that she still thinks he handled it really badly and is
which
not
she
pleased
did.
with it. And that she remembers their relationship as being quite troubled, and he doesn't. He's like, we were fine. I didn't speak to her badly. We had a great time.
What's crazy about that is that we all saw it on camera, not
Yeah.
just in the moment, that moment, but afterwards, where like he told her that she had too many emotions and that she was needy, and like the dismissive way that he spoke to her continued until he got embroiled in this other drama.
Right. It was almost like, thank God he got distracted by doing strategy,
Yeah.
because until then he was focused on beating Parisa down emotionally.
I do believe that that was the behavior Andrew probably witnessed and was like, bro, I don't have good feelings about you. So like, how are you
Yeah.
moving in here?
It's also possible that he wasn't witnessing things, but he was hearing about things some way via Parisa, or Parisa talking to her friends about it.
Also true.
Because I did notice at a certain point in the show that the men thought that things were good between them, probably because Brian thought things were good, and the women did not as much think
Right.
things were good.
And I do think Alex and Parisa obviously had a pre-existing
Yeah,
relationship. So
because they were on the same season.
yeah.
So Shawn gets his moment to defend Parliament of Paradise. His arguments. Has no one else heard of Survivor? Why did no one want to play Survivor? Also, when
Okay,
that
Shawn.
happened, there were 4 or 5 days left of filming. He didn't have many friends from his season, no roommate, and he came in last of the guys. So he's basically like, I had no avenue toward having a really tight social connection compared to the other guys who were bonding with their roommates or guys from their season. It's like, we were going to go home.
I mean, like, I was like, okay, fair enough. You're throwing a Hail Mary, you deciding to do ridiculous strategy because you kind of know you're going home. That seems plausible to me.
Totally. And then he's like, I called everything, though. I knew everything that was going to happen. I knew the jury was going to come back. Like, okay,
Okay, Shawn, what's everything? What's everything? You guessed one like fairly obvious move that the show would be making. Okay,
Yeah.
good for you.
He jokes that no one saw his vision, but he knew they'd be gone either way. And like, that is true. It is true that, like, sure, maybe try something, it doesn't work. Not the end of the world. I don't even think that anyone thinks that he's like a bad person for trying something and it
No,
didn't
I
work
just
out.
think people thought he was completely ham-fisted.
Yeah. And they're like, we don't want to deal with this. And then he crashed out for a long time. Kathy asks him about when he told her they were the strongest relationship, he and Alicia. And Shawn says, whether we were or not, you didn't know what the fuck you were talking about.
This was so
Sir,
intense and wild and rude. How dare you?
I was actually shocked. Did he think this would be like, oh, what an impudent scamp?
I really don't know what the fuck he was thinking.
This was
in this
weirdly
moment.
aggressive.
I also felt like anyone who was mean to Kathy in this reunion got a real ding from me.
Yeah.
Or Keith. How dare you?
Like, what's your damage? Kathy is like, whoa, wait, respect your elders.
Yeah. Yeah, Shawn. Respect your elders.
I was like, Wells, you need to pause the reunion and make him apologize. That's crazy. He tries to say that there is no way to evaluate relationships because none of us are there for every single moment between them. This is something that people say when they are obviously not in the strongest couple.
And to Alicia's credit, she pipes in to be like, but it's very clear we weren't.
Yeah, I think that's obvious.
Yeah.
So whatever to that. I So that's his whole defense of Parliament of Paradise. This all could have been like fun and games, ha ha ha, if he hadn't crashed out on Cat so hard. And there's going to be a lot more to say about the Cat, Alicia, and Shawn situation. But first, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we will get right back into the drama.
And we're back. Let's get back into the Bachelor in Paradise reunion drama. Something that I found very interesting before we dive further into the like Alicia, Cat, Shawn of it all is that there was a lot of discussion about the way that people chose to vote. And this, or what I saw was like in real time, the cast trying to negotiate the rules of engagement of Paradise in this new format. Like, we decided, who decided, but we decided that this is about love. And if you say it's about love, then I guess you have like a legal obligation to vote out all the platonic couples first. And if you didn't do that, you're like a hypocrite. And several people tried
Right.
to go after Keith and Kathy about this because they were saying it is about love. And I found this
Right.
so funny because I was like, well, but you're also on a TV show. And like, I do get calling someone hypocritical if at the final hour when there was actually like a winner or like money at play, you were voting for a platonic couple after saying it was about love. But like, we're in the middle of the game here. We're just voting people to hang out. We're voting people to like
Right.
get a bit more screen time.
They're writing the rules as they go. They're assembling the plane as they fly it. Like,
Yeah.
this is the first season they've ever done like this. But, we see this especially with Shawn and Alicia and also Brian. But Paresa is kind of like, I wanted to go. Thank you for
Yeah,
sending
no,
me home.
Brian tries to go after Kathy, and Kathy's like, well, Paresa openly told me multiple times that she wanted to leave, and she
Yeah.
was like crying to me, so I did that for her.
Yeah, out of the goodness of my heart. I'm so
and Paresa's
sorry.
like, yes, that is true.
That is true. I hated it and I wanted to leave. And then she says to Brian, and you knew that. And he's like, yeah, I did know that. And I'm like, okay, once again, two different realities. And yet you knew about her reality and it seems like it just didn't penetrate or you didn't give a fuck. You were like, my partner is miserable. She wanted to leave. I didn't care. I'm still mad that I had to leave, even though she wanted to. It's like he doesn't know how to accept that her desires are just like as real as his. So this also comes up with Shawn and Alicia, and it seems like there is some anger and bad blood that someone would vote them out before platonic couples. To which I just say, like, too bad. Like, get over it.
Maybe
No
you're a
one
bad
wanted you there
hang.
anymore.
Yeah, like, no, I'm sorry. I'm
Like,
sorry. At a certain point, it's like, well, who did people want to spend time with?
Right. This is all part of the game,
Yeah.
honestly. And like, you felt like you could strategize openly in this insanely risky way and put a big bullseye on your back because you are going to be protected by the shield of your relationship status. That's not real. That's not going to protect you. That's a
No.
piece of tissue paper in front of you if
Also,
they
I'm
decide they
sorry,
don't want you anymore.
You made this up. No one said platonic couples weren't allowed
fictional.
to be in the game. That's not
Right. You might all
real.
be sitting around being like, it makes more sense for us to get down to like the strong couples instead of having platonic couples at the end. That doesn't mean that if push comes to shove, if you're really freaking them out or pissing them off and they are
can't
enjoying
send
hanging out
you
with their good
home.
friends, the Goldens, that they can't send you home instead. They absolutely can, and they did.
Also, guess what? You did get down to strong couples at the end. So what's your damage?
Yeah. No, you did. Like, it just took a slightly different path to get there. Like, you were as Shawn knew, they were never really in contention. So what does it matter?
Well, exactly. And also, I personally wanted to spend more time with Keith and Kathy, not with Shawn
Same.
and Alicia.
Same.
Or Brian.
And they needed
Sorry.
time. They needed time to go call Kat's ex-boyfriend back in Tampa. And then we do get our sort of Alicia hot seat. I thought it was interesting that ultimately it seemed like Alicia took more of the heat from this whole situation than Shawn.
I know.
Like, this truly is
Again,
the story of this season. As much as Alicia irritates me, he
this was
was the one
Shawn.
driving.
This was Shawn.
So she is asked first about how it felt to hear her besties from her season of The Bachelor, Bailey and Alex, whispering about maybe sending her home. And she says the closest analog to how it felt was a knife in my gut. Like, it's impossible to think of a feeling closer to what she felt other than a knife just being stabbed right into her gut. But she now does believe that they had her back, and she's glad that they were able to address it, quote, not just as friends, but as individuals and women.
Okay.
You know what? It's the pageant girl thing. I think that's genuinely it. I think that a lot of what it irks me, just being fully transparent about that, it's just that it rubs me the wrong way. I think it's pageant training that she is always trying to
Yeah.
make her answers sound at a certain level of formality that sounds very media trained and like she's speaking maybe in paragraphs. And sometimes that results in these sort of meaningless redundancies. For example, like, why does it matter that you are also addressing it as individuals and as women? Like, those are all separate categories. You know what I mean? It's like she's up there filling her like 1 minute response about how she would bring about world peace or something.
So
It's
real.
like poised to a fault in this setting.
But I am glad that these individuals and women
And
and the
friends.
group of them, the
Mhm.
friends, were all able to address this and squash it.
Same. And she does say that Bailey and Alex were the ones that she was referencing in her exit speech on the show because she thought that they voted with their partners. But she no longer believes that. And then we really get into the Alicia and Cat beef. And I think part of the reason that this does end up falling more on Alicia than on Shawn is that Alicia and Kat still have a lot of bad blood, whereas it seems like Shawn and Kat
Had a
talked
phone
things
call.
out.
Yes, I
And
also think part of this is that Alicia is the one that went on the Vile Files and made all of these claims about Kat and her
yep,
relationship before the like last episode aired and before these claims were made like on TV. So a lot of the conversation in the public sphere about this was going off of what Alicia had said.
yes, Alicia became like the face of the anti-Cat brigade. And so Kat tells Alicia that she's upset. Alicia has been speaking about her so negatively, making claims about her in public without having a conversation with Kat. And Alicia says, we did have conversations, Kat, but I think that she means conversations about other stuff in the past,
Yes.
which, okay, but like not about this though.
Right. What Kat is clearly saying is like, you made all these claims and you didn't have a conversation with me where you said, hey, I have heard these things about like, did you come in here with a relationship?
Right. You could have talked to me about that during filming. You could have talked to me about it even after filming before you did media appearances, but you never did. And Alicia says, your feelings are so valid. And then she starts talking about how Kat isn't a girl's girl because the first night they met while filming, Kat asked Alicia to take a picture of the group of girls. And not like she didn't include Alicia in the group that would be photographed. She asked her to take it. So that was her being not a girl's girl.
And here's the thing. I do have empathy for like entering a group late and feeling that someone is not including you in the social dynamics. Like having, as a very sensitive person,
Hmm.
especially in that way, like feeling left out is something very triggering to me, brings me back to like my child self. Um, there are a lot of like small things that you can do to send someone, intentionally or not, the signal that like they are not included and that you are not thinking about them. So I can see, and given that Kat has admitted that she is someone who like isn't always aware of her delivery, is sometimes in her own world, not always sensitive to those kind of dynamics, I can definitely see a world in which Alicia came in and felt an iciness from Kat, and that rubbed her the wrong way, and she like felt left out by Kat and not good about Kat. Sure, that is one thing. But in the intermediate time, she has gone on a press tour. And like
Right.
a lot of really intense, potentially like relationship ruining claims have been made about Kat. So to at this point be bringing up the photo thing, it doesn't quite like match where we're at.
Right. That's not what this part of this conversation is about. And so it felt like she was saying, well, why should I feel obligated to come ask you about these ruinous claims I'm about to make about you in a very public setting once you excluded me from a group photo the first night we met? So you don't deserve it. Like, you're not a good enough person. It just seemed like such a tangent, such a deflection from the actual
Right.
point. And
This
she
would have
also
been
brings
more
up,
appropriate at a different time if they were
right,
discussing like why Alicia did not have good feelings about Kat.
right,
But they were discussing
100%.
these specific, very intense claims that were made multiple times, both during filming and after.
And I think something that gets collapsed together throughout this is that Alicia keeps saying, like, I'm speaking my truth, like, I'm sharing my experiences. And Kat is like, no, that's fine. Like, Kat seems actually
I
quite
was actually
receptive to people
impressed.
telling her that she's
Yeah.
mean.
Yeah.
She's
No,
like, sure, maybe I did that.
I actually
Sorry.
was impressed. And I had listened to Kat and Dale on the Vile Files, so I had heard that Nick had brought up like a DM that Paresa had sent him, basically
I
claiming
heard that.
that Kat had been mean. And so you could see that Kat like actually showed up like not wanting to fight about those things and very much open, as you said, to hearing feedback about the ways in which she may have hurt people's feelings.
Yeah. And I listened to that also this morning, and I was really struck by the way that even some of the other people on the podcast, like Dale and Nick, were being like, oh, you know, you never know why people want to bring something like this up. They have their own motivations. And she was like, no, but if I'm making people feel bullied, I really want
Yeah,
to
I want
know.
to
Like,
know.
that upsets me. I believe that she is, from what we saw, receptive to hearing Alicia's feelings about how Kat treated her. But what Kat is saying is, you are speaking on things that you don't have direct knowledge of,
Right, it's not
that
actually
I do, and
your truth.
you didn't come to me even to get my side of it before speaking on it. You are presenting it in this very definitive way to the public, and that is not your truth. That is something you heard about
Right.
me.
Right. This is
And
actually completely like secondhand, or at least filtered through someone else's account of a relationship that like you weren't a part of. So you don't have a
right.
truth about that relationship.
So those two
Kat
categories are getting
does.
like really collapsed together. And I think Alicia is actually really focused on how she felt around Kat and wanting to be able to talk about that. And Kat is like, no, I want you to admit that you spoke too
Out of turn,
definitively
kind
about
of.
something.
Yeah.
You spoke out of turn about my previous relationship. So Kat does apologize in this moment and is like, sometimes I do accidentally exclude people. I know this is something I have a tendency to do and it's never my intention, but like, I am really sorry. I did try to befriend you the night that Shawn was crashing out about Parliament of Paradise or whatever. I checked on you. And Alicia says, well, that just felt like an artificial time to reach out and it didn't feel genuine. Fair enough. Alicia also says that every night when she was going to bed with Shawn, she was hearing so much about how sincere and kind Kat actually is. She's like, every night he was just like, she's so well-meaning, she's so nice, you should give her a chance. I was like, honestly, it sounds like this pissed you off even more because you hated Kat from the beginning, and this guy and you lost out on Dale to Kat. You wanted to take Dale. It didn't work out. Now you're with Shawn. And what won't he shut up about? How great Cat is. Of course, she's infuriated. She's like, shut up. Cat's not so special. I would feel the same way. Why won't these men shut up about Cat? She's mean to me. She didn't include me in the group picture.
She's making me feel left out.
I totally can imagine this pissed her off more. Maybe I'm projecting that, but that is how it sounds.
And then I'm sure I also can see how she could have gotten like carried away if she's like, I already had a bad feeling about this person for whatever reason. And the person I'm with is telling me this person's such a good person. And then I find out that like maybe she had a boyfriend the whole time. You know, you can see getting carried away with like, well, obviously this is true because I already have this bad feeling. But I wish Alicia had been able to pull herself back a little bit more for this reunion and be like, look, my understanding was XYZ. I should have come to you first. You know, I apologize. And like eventually towards the end of this, they get to a point where both of them are like, let's like move on.
Let's squash this, she says.
Let's squash this. But like it's so intense before that it just felt like a lot of whiplash for me personally.
Yeah. We have a long journey to go on first.
Right.
With Alicia saying some things.
Well, that's the thing. That's why by the time we got there, I was like, what's going on? Because you just went so hard for the last like hour.
It seems like she came in prepared to go really hard at Cat, but I don't know if she prepared the right materials. So Cat hears about how all their pillow talk, Shawn and Alicia, was about how great Cat is. And she's like, well, yeah, because you obviously hated me from the beginning, even though you didn't know me. Like, he was just trying to get you to give me a chance. And Alicia then says, well, how would you feel if a polygraph test was to be administered? And Cat is like, take it, girl. And Alicia says, oh, like, really? Because I have an appointment tomorrow at 10 a.m. with the best FBI agent in the state of California.
And Kat just says, you're weird.
Yeah. She's like, you're a weirdo. Like, what? I want to pause on this for a second.
What is going on here?
If a polygraph test was to be administered to whom, Alicia?
And about what?
I would feel fine if a polygraph test was to be administered. Sounds like something that has nothing to do with me. They happen every day. Who is taking the test? It seems like Kat thinks that Alicia is volunteering to take it. Alicia seems to be saying that Kat should take it.
Yeah, my understanding was that it was about administering a test on Kat.
But Kat's saying, take it. Go ahead.
No,
as if she's not going to be there. And regarding what exactly? Is it about whether Kat was mean? Is it about whether Kat had a boyfriend? That seems to make more sense, but what a weird time to bring it up when you're arguing about whether Kat was being nice to you in paradise.
No, this whole thing is completely bizarre.
She just had prepared that. She like made the appointment. She's like, and then I'm going to be like, mic drop. You don't want to take the polygraph test. I'm sorry.
This is not effective.
Kat is in a relationship with the person she met on the show. So, like, what is going to be accomplished for you?
What do you want to happen here?
By cornering her into a polygraph test.
Also, clearly, Dale doesn't care.
Dale doesn't care.
Whatever happened, Dale isn't worried about it. And she's with Dale.
Right.
There's just only so
bizarre.
So hard you can go at Kat over this because the person she's with doesn't care.
Yeah. And the ex seems to not want to be involved, which we'll get to. And now Alicia is mad that Kat is calling her a weirdo and a liar. And Kat's like, I'm allowed to stand up for myself by saying that those are lies. Alicia then circles back to, well, Kat isn't a nice person. She says the way she spoke to the cast, to the maids and the bartenders and production shows that she's not a nice person. So this was like a bit of a yikes for me. I was like, we all know the person who is rude to people in service jobs, who thinks that she's too good to have to be polite to people who are cleaning her hotel rooms or serving her drinks.
And that would put me off someone as
totally. Well. And maybe that's true. I've never spent time with Kat in that setting. It seems plausible. And Kat says the people who know her wouldn't say that. But you don't have to know someone that well to observe them speaking to people in service jobs. So I was like kind of thrown by this. I was like, maybe Kat is just like a shitty person. Maybe she is just like a bitch to people who are in working class jobs around her. Maybe she's
It's
rude.
possible. We don't know. Like, it's hard to litigate that because you're like, I
Right.
haven't seen Kat speak to the staff at this hotel.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah, it is very hard to litigate that. And it also seems like if she is someone, as she has said, who is generally a bit sharp and insensitive to how her words will be taken, that could come off as being a bit brusque and
right. To like
chilly
anyone who
to
comes into her
anyone,
orbit. Yeah.
including people that she should maybe be more thoughtful about being polite to, like people who are serving her meals. And Kat's like, well, you've spoken so strongly about me without considering my profession and my family. And this is when they argue about whether Alicia is just speaking the truth or whether she's sharing her opinion. Paresa does chime in here, but she doesn't come at Kat as hard
Well,
as
this was, again, another
she
point that
maybe
I was
said she
like,
would.
we need moderation. And I wish
Yeah.
someone, Wells, had brought up the DM.
Yeah.
Like, you've made claims that have now been made public that Kat was a bully. Do you stand by that feeling? Why did you feel that way? Kat, how do you respond to that? Like, again, this is where a moderator steps in. You are leaving it to these people, some of whom are very conflict averse, which I relate to get into it without prompting. And so what ends up happening is that Paresa speaks around the fact that she thought Kat was
Right.
mean.
At no point does she says,
She
I
doesn't
see
even
it.
say Kat's name.
She doesn't. She says, like, I see Alicia's point because on the beach, like in Paradise, when you had an issue with someone, people would say, oh, you should confront them, but it's not welcomed. And you would be putting a larger bullseye on your own back. You would be turned into the aggressor in the situation. It's not worth it. It seems
You're
like
like,
she's
say
saying
more.
it seems like she's saying that she felt Kat was a mean girl and she talked to other people about it at the time. They encouraged her to confront Kat and she felt like it wouldn't be received well. But that is reading between the lines because that's not what she says.
Right.
And Kat tells Paresa she's sorry if she felt that Kat was a bully. This is where she references the DM. She's like, I know you like sent the DM. At that point, I had no idea what this was about because I hadn't listened to Kat and Dale on the Vile Files, but now I understand. Again, would have loved some clarification. And she's like, I really tried to be both of your friends. I tried to be there for you with the situation with Brian because you were, you needed a lot of support. I tried to be there for Alicia. I tried to check in on you guys. If I made either of you feel like it wasn't a safe environment, I'm sorry. And she also says that she is becoming aware that she has a lower sensitivity level than other people. She isn't always thoughtful about how things will be taken, and she's working on that. And Alicia's like, thank you for apologizing. I'm sorry if combativeness came across from me because it wasn't an attack. I was just speaking my truth and catching strays for doing so. I don't think you know what a stray is, though.
No.
Like, if people are criticizing or don't like the way that you are handling the situation, that's not a stray.
That's actually like a direct
Right.
hit.
Catching a stray is what Bailey was doing when Andrew was mad
Right.
about how people were harassing Alex. And she says, I do believe in turning the cheek and I do want to squash things with you. And then Kat asks if she hurt anyone else's feelings on the cast. And Alex says that she is very sensitive and she knows that Kat's heart is good, but her delivery can be so sassy that people can't always tell if they don't know her well. And she also says that Kat has really supported her in the aftermath of the show and she thanks her.
What I read between the lines here is that Alex, when she didn't know Kat as well, felt some type of way about
Yeah.
the way Kat moves. And that once they had the chance to get to know each other and Alex was able to say some of these things to Kat, that Kat responded well and like took that feedback on board, and that ultimately she is like a great friend.
Yeah. I mean, it's very hard for, as we've said, to litigate when there are so many things we don't know about these people. There's so much we don't see. Um, is Kat like just kind of a queen bee? Even mean girls have friends, you know? And maybe that's the case. Maybe she is just kind of like a mean girl who maintains friendships for her own purposes, but she's not like nice or welcoming. There is also the case that it could be that she is like a warm-hearted person with this kind of like spiky, chilly exterior. And that's why
Yeah.
a lot of people on these shows tend to say, once they get to know her really well, like, she's now a really good friend, like, she's misunderstood.
That
She's
is
a really
sort of
sweet
my, like, if
person.
I was a betting woman, that is sort of my read on it. That, like, she is a flawed person who has a very prickly exterior. And when you don't have the benefit of feeling connected to her, that doesn't necessarily feel good being around. But if you do have a deeper connection with her, you read all of that a lot more generously.
Yeah. I'm still kind of up in the air about Kat, but
I mean, we will
honestly,
never know because we don't
we'll
know her
never know.
personally.
We'll never know. And like, to be honest, I was still left kind of feeling more warmly toward her than Alicia, even though I will say being rude to like service workers is one of my biggest
Same.
icks, like huge, huge red flag for me. So that did give me a lot of pause. I was also really bothered by Alicia through this whole media tour and through this reunion, doing a lot of like, you need to be a girl's girl, like kind of cloaking herself in the language of feminism, but it's all seemed like kind of self-serving to me. And a lot of it was being used to go at other women over relatively minor infractions of her rules of like loyalty and good behavior. Whereas the men, she was sort of like, well, men are what men are. On the Vile File, she's very like, basically, I expect more from women. And we should have really like hung in there for each other. Okay, but in the end, what you're doing is enforcing a higher standard on women than on men. That ended up kind of, I think, also rubbing me the wrong way. I think part of what happened with this season is that the new format actually kind of worked in the opposite way of the old Paradise, where relationships were very unstable up until the end, but the friendships became very tight.
Mm.
This season, we had a competitive element between friends. They were having to vote against each other, try to maybe form alliances against each other, compete against each other. And meanwhile, they were really pushed into their couple further
I
by
think
being a
that's a
team.
really, really good point. And that also, I think we saw a bunch of people speaking to that. You know, you saw like Spencer repeatedly say, well, if I had to spend time with anyone, it was going to be Jess, right? Like that's where I was
Right.
investing.
Right.
And so you add that to the competition element. And yeah, the things that are destabilized are not the romantic relationships. It is these pre-existing, especially friendships.
Right. And that is the one critique that everyone pretty much had of the new format. Most of them seem to really love the challenges. They love new people not coming in, but then they had to vote on their friends, and it created
And
a
that
lot of
sucks.
social pressure. And so I think what we ended up seeing was a season where the narrative is these women are choosing the men over their friends. They're not girls. They're not supporting each other. They're prioritizing just some dude they just met. And I think part of that was kind of in the format that was used this season. But let's get back to Kat and whether she was in a relationship when she came on the show. We're never talking about this again. They have just squashed the beef, Kat and Alicia, and Wells asks if Alicia has any regrets about the jury of peers moment. And Alicia is like, nope, I have no regrets. I'll never regret speaking my truth. And because, you know, Kat had lied about some things, we thought this was the best way because we didn't want things to be like misconstrued. So the beef is immediately unsquashed. It's like so back. And Kat's like, what did I lie
Incredible
about? And,
stuff.
and Alicia's like, I don't think it helps to go backward.
And Kat's like, okay, let me help you. That you think I was in a relationship.
I was like, Alicia, you can't just say Cat was lying and then say, but I can't say about what, because that would be going backward.
You're like, I think we've
You
already
already
gone
brought it
backward.
up.
Jesus.
So Alicia says that she knows Kat was in a relationship. It was confirmed by her ex. Jess chimes in here. She says she was friends with Kat's ex before
Who
she
is this
even met
ex?
Kat. Who is he? How do they all know him? Are they all from Tampa? What's going on? And she says she actually thought Kat didn't even like her at the time. They'd only met once before going on the show, but she was friends with Kat's ex. And so she knows that they weren't in a relationship. And Kat says the ex has also confirmed that as of today. Okay, that would serve you to
Everyone
say.
seems to be in touch with this ex.
This
And he's
ex
like,
is
please leave me
spinning
out of
different
this
narratives
narrative.
to everyone. He's like, I'm just going to say to each of you what I think will serve you to hear, and then I will disappear into the foliage. Shawn says that he never said they were actually in a relationship, but that they had a plan to get back together. And he's not the right reasons police, but he draws a line at a plan to get back together. Andrew, for some reason, goes really hard here defending Kat. He's like, a plan is basically meaningless. I can plan to be president, but am I the president? Sure. That's a really good point. Kat also denies having snuck in an iPad. She denies having had a plan to get back together. She denies texting the ex while she was there. And she
And
says, basically, it would be in the edit if I was on an iPad at all, which I think the assumption was always that she hid it from production. So,
right. I guess, like, I understand there are cameras in their rooms. What I took from all of this, because Shawn also says as much, and I find it plausible, is that, like, any messages that were sent at, like, the staging hotel before filming actually started at the resort.
right.
So maybe she did sneak a device past the first, like, tier
Right.
of production intervention. But yeah, it would be a lot harder to be like actively messaging someone when there are cameras in your bedroom.
Right. No, that's true. But there are, like, in the bathroom, like, there are places where you could maybe, in a very sneaky way, send a little message
You
and
could.
hide your device.
I'm just saying it is plausible that Kat could be like telling the truth here, but also Shawn could be telling the truth here, right?
Yeah.
That she's like, I didn't message them during filming. And he's like, but you did right before, during pre-filming.
Right.
And that's never directly denied.
Dale says he doesn't care what came before. They all had stuff going on. It seems like all of them are kind of thinking like, yeah, I had a roster, I had a situationship, I had a fuck buddy, and yet here I am in a relationship now, so who
Right. And there's no
cares?
confusion now. Like, we're
Right.
together and there's no one else involved in our relationship. So, like, what does it matter?
Alicia says, well, at the time there was $500,000 on the line. And Kat says that they weren't thinking about the money. And Alicia says, but we were. And Kat says, we know you were. Like, I get what Alicia is saying. Like, if we're going to give a big prize, shouldn't we give it to a couple that isn't, questionable?
And that's like fair enough. I think, we all know that regardless, Kat and Dale were going to go home. So,
Right. So it was really, that's the thing that is the most unsettling. And like, maybe they did not know that, but there are things they could have done to take the temperature of the room, to see where the vote was headed. They could have talked to Kat first. They could have talked to Dale first. What happened seemed like more a very intentional effort to get it on camera and to kind of publicly humiliate Kat.
Sure.
Rather
There's no
than,
question.
because it's clear they would have gone home anyway. Kat and Dale have said they know they were going to go home anyway. Everyone knew. Like,
Yeah,
I don't
Dale
think
said as soon
I
as we
knew.
lost that challenge, I knew we were going home.
Right. So Alicia says, well, it's in the past. I commend you for sticking together, but I'm allowed to speak my truth and I'm being crucified.
She's always speaking her truth and
and
catching
she's-
strays.
she's
and
catching strays.
being crucified
Like, the
as
Lord
a woman,
Jesus.
as a friend,
I mean,
as an individual. She's being crucified.
Dale says that there's no hate from him and Kat towards Shawn and Alicia. And I don't know, Kat looks like she feels quite hateful at this moment. He says none of their actions were wrong. And Cat also looks like she
Dale
disagrees
is
with
just
that.
so unbothered. I find it.
He's like, I got the girl,
He's
whatever.
just like, whatever. I'm not worried about this ex. So, like,
And Kat's
okay.
like, my reputation has been dragged through the dirt
And Dale's like,
nationally.
but we're fine.
Like, whatever, I got the girl. And then Alicia says she has nothing bad to say about Dale. And Kat says, just me. And Alicia's like, yeah, I do have bad things to say about you. You just squashed the beef.
The beef will never be squashed.
Finally, Wells asked Kat to clarify the relationship, and she says she didn't come with the boyfriend. She wasn't texting from Paradise, and she did leave with the boyfriend, that being Dale. Shawn has asked for his receipts, and he apparently doesn't have them. I was led very strongly to believe on the show that they had receipts, but it
Because he
sounds
said
more like
it.
the ex had. It sounds more like the ex had implied that there were receipts, but now Shawn feels weird about asking for the receipts because the ex doesn't want to be dragged into it publicly. And so he's like, I didn't want to like hound him for information, so I don't have them. Okay, you said you had them, but okay. All right. All of this was apparently just on the word of the ex, and there were never any receipts involved, just the promise of receipts, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Kat and Shawn have, as we mentioned, apparently talked through what happened since filming and the big sort of friendship rupture that led to all of this. She says that she didn't deny their friendship, which I agree with because that's not the question she was asked. But she says she was hesitant to say they were good friends because they hadn't talked that much recently, and she was put off by how he was behaving. And on the Vile Files, she goes more into saying, like, you know, we were really close after the first season of Paradise, but then I moved to San Diego. We weren't really talking that often. I wasn't spending holidays with him.
Right.
It's
We
more
like
that we would
ran
see each
into
other
each
at
other in a bar.
right, we'd see each other out at the bars when we were home for the holidays. Like it was made she feels that he
Right.
he and Alicia made it sound like
saying
more than it
I went
was.
to the local bar the Wednesday before Thanksgiving and ran into some friends from high school, and then that person saying like we spent Thanksgiving together. Like that's not quite
Right.
accurate.
Exactly. So you could sort of see where the germ of truth might have come from. Um, but it sounds like in her mind, at least, it was spun into be a bigger friendship than it actually was. She's like, once I moved to San Diego, we didn't really keep in such close touch until we found out we were both going to be on Paradise again. Um, but she does say she doesn't think that he's a horrible person. She knows he felt really hurt, but she wishes he'd done things differently. And he explains that he felt hurt because he had defended her so much, but then when the cards went against him, she didn't speak up for him. And she's like, that's completely fair. Dale also says to Shawn that Kat always spoke really highly of him and vouched for him. So it's not like she never spoke up for him in any context. And then they kind of leave that there. So this all ends with like Kat and Shawn are like chill again, and Alicia and Kat are like 50% of the reunion.
I I know.
Again, it's like the man throws a bomb and then like retreats into the bushes, and the women are
Yeah,
at
and
each
he's
other's
like, yeah,
necks.
no, we worked it out. We're actually all good. It's fine. Okay, Shawn, this was your
Okay.
crusade. Why
I
is
know.
it?
I wanted more accountability for the men this episode, and somehow the accountability for men always gets turned into accountability for women.
So before we get into some just like more random moments that we were delighted / horrified by, we wanted to discuss some of like the social fallout of the votes. Like they go over some of the consequential votes and like the lingering resentments that still exist among some of the cast as a result.
Yeah, I thought it was especially notable. You know, Spencer and Dale, obviously, Jeremy voted against them because they said they wouldn't vote for him, and then they did. He's basically like, yeah, I don't like regret that. Like, but I'm also not really mad at them. Like, that's how you play the game. It's gameplay. That's fine.
And they're sort of like, yeah, fair enough. I did say I wasn't going to vote against Jeremy, and then I did. So fair
Yeah.
is fair.
The one that really seems to create a bit more, aside from, as we discussed before, there's a lot of back and forth about like, oh, you said you would never vote for a real couple to go home first. But another thing that comes up is Kathy and Keith voting against Bailey and Jeremy. after the Queen for a Day sort of trauma competition that they hosted.
This
And
made me kind of sad
this made me sad
because I
too.
understood why you might come off the show and be like, oh, I'm a little hurt that I wasn't like deemed worthy or something of a vote or like of like staying. But I also feel like at a certain point, people just had to vote and had to
They
like
had to
make up
vote.
reasons in their own minds why they
Yeah.
were going to vote the way they did.
She says it really hurt her and Jeremy that Kathy decided based on who she thought needed the money most. And then she says, just because I have a lot of nice things. And then there's a pause for everyone to laugh because that sounds so bananas. Like, just because I have a lot of nice things doesn't mean that I don't deserve a bunch more money just compared to someone who has nothing. I was like, Bailey, socialism, like to each according to her need.
And Kathy just seems a little thrown.
She's like, wait, what? It seems like Kathy doesn't know that Bailey is upset about this.
Yeah.
And my overall impression of this is that Bailey felt that Kat and Dale are not like financially worse off. And so it bugged her to be judged in that competition as less deserving of more money. She's like, you know, obviously if Alex and Andrew were up for the vote, I would get it. But like,
right.
Why
You were
not
judging
us?
Couples that kind of had the same needs.
Like, that's her perception,
Yeah.
right? And I don't even have a fair perception. I have no insight really
We
into
do
what
not
their financial
know any of these
situations
people's
are.
financial situations, and we don't have to. And I understand also Bailey's point where she's like, it's very uncomfortable to be like expected to talk about finances on camera. That's all fair. But I also understand why Kathy was like, I believe in all of these couples. I need to wrap my head around a reason to make a decision. And so I'm going to think about this practically. And like,
Yeah.
who has plans for this money that sound like they make sense to me?
She's a utilitarian. She's like, how can we do the most good for the most people with this money? And so if there's a couple here who need this money to start a family, to pay off loans, to buy a first home, that seems like it creates more good than people who are going to use it to go on another trip in addition to their like already wonderful plans of traveling together a lot. Like that just seems like the utilitarian approach. And Bailey says, well, we also said that we weren't just going to travel. We also told you we wanted to buy a place together. And it just seems like Kathy took an impression away from that conversation that was like, these are young people who want to go like have fun and travel, and they don't need a big chunk of money for a purchase. And Kat and Dale are looking at like, maybe they need a nest egg right now. And Bailey's like, that doesn't feel good to hear.
And I get it not feeling good. I just sort of feel like you have to be like, well, she had to vote for someone.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, I think Bailey and Kathy, she says many times that she loves the Goldens and that Kathy and Keith that were very important to her experience.
And so she was hurt.
Right. And I don't think that outweighs the value that Bailey places on this relationship, but this does briefly get sort of aired out in this moment. I also thought it was interesting that Jeremy admits that he and Bailey talked about the final challenge being money or love. He's a student of the game.
Jeremy, we've said he's pretty good at strategy.
Yeah, when he's not like having a complete meltdown. He can No, he clearly like is familiar with how such a format might appear in a show like this, like it did on Bachelor Pad. And he says that we agreed that he's like, I said I would take the money and we just split it and date after, because why not?
And I'm like, yeah, this is a fundamental flaw with this format. Like someone's going to do this next season.
Right. They're like, we trusted each other. So that was kind of the plan. And someone's going to do it because you get guaranteed more money.
Yeah. I mean, I think this has been floated by like every commentator.
Right. We'll
like
see what they do next
move.
season. I think the more we bring it up, the more I'm like, I hope that you guys are taking this in and thinking of a twist. Uh, the last thing, we never really talked about Jonathan and Leia. They are still close friends. They're not dating or considering dating. But we do hear a little bit from Jonathan about why things didn't go well for him on the show. And he basically says it was just a long wait to go on the show. He had been asked to go on a long time before it actually filmed. He felt a lot of pressure to live up to his like good guy edit, to give the people a great love story, and then there just ended up being no real sparks with anyone.
And
And
this made a lot of sense to me, like the way that you could sort of buckle under the weight of being put on a pedestal by the
yeah,
audience. And Andrew chimes in and says that like he felt something similar during his first Paradise season after being on Katie's season. He sort of had like I'd say a similar arc or edit to Jonathan, was like very much beloved, and even though he didn't win. And so he felt this like, yeah, this pressure and this responsibility to deliver. And so then when it doesn't happen, you kind of buckle. And so it makes sense to me that like Andrew had a lot more fun now. Like he's been out
yeah.
of the mix for a little bit of time, so he could come back in and just be like, hey, is there anyone I like here? If not, no big deal. I'll go home.
Yeah, the expectations were significantly reduced for Andrew this time around. I kept forgetting he was there. I was like, he was kind of out of my memory window almost. Like I'd started to forget stuff about him because his seasons had been so long ago.
Oh, that's funny.
I was like, all right, Andrew, like Jonathan needs to get to that point. If he's still single, he can come back
Yeah,
on.
it's always a little better when like at least a portion of people have forgotten about you.
Yeah. Like look at the guys who did really the best this season.
Yeah,
And
Dale,
it's Dale,
Andrew.
and then Spencer, who just like was not a huge figure in the fans, in the public's kind of imagination.
Yeah, no,
So the
it's
more
a
that you
real
can kind of
advantage.
shed that,
It's a
yeah,
real advantage to be like known, but not centrally.
yeah, to not have that much pressure on your shoulders. So should we get to our random moments of delight and horror?
Yes.
I loved that Jeremy was at least confronted about the rude things he kept saying about the Goldens by Kathy, of course. Not Wells. It's the first thing Wells brings up, but then he doesn't make Jeremy actually speak to it. But Kathy does eventually call him out.
Yeah, she's like, what the hell?
Why did you keep saying you hated us? And his only real response was that eventually, toward the very end, he came to like them. And
He's like, no,
I
yes, I did hate you.
I did hate you at first.
Rude, Jeremy.
I just think if you hate an entire group of people that just happen to share the characteristic of being old, then you should do some reflection, some inward reflection.
I mean, if we're lucky, we all will be older than we are now. So,
yeah. Bailey says that Jeremy and Kathy are Tauruses and neither will back down. And Kathy's like, no, I actually will because I'm happy for you guys.
oh, I love Kathy so much.
See, that's maturity. That's actually growth. Jeremy, when you're Kathy's age, I hope you're also able to humble yourself a little bit.
I did love that Bailey talked about how much she loved having the Goldens around and how having them around was like really helpful for her mental health during the experience.
Yeah, she was like, it was like having my parents there.
It was so sweet.
Another moment, Brian finally knows his favorite color, except he doesn't know what it is.
It seems that actually Leia just helped him pick a random color that he could say was his favorite color for this broadcast.
He claims that it is fuchsia, and he doesn't know what that looks like.
Which
I hope
also
that
really...
You know what? I really hope this means that Leia is trolling him by tricking him into saying that bright pink is his favorite color.
I do. That is the sense I got.
Like, normally I'm against trying to embarrass men by associating them with the color pink. However, Brian is the one kind of guy where I will make an exception because of his
So
toxic
true.
masculinity. Yeah, I think his favorite color is probably black.
I thought he was going to say black, Claire.
Or chrome. I don't know. Matte steel, like my Cybertruck.
Yeah. He's like, whatever color the Gillette for Men razors are.
Yeah.
That's mine.
They make them that color because men like that color. So I like
It
that
says
color.
for men
Yeah.
on the box.
I also enjoyed Kathy. Well, I don't know if this was just a weird moment. Kathy's like, well, Keith and I are announcing our engagement today. And Bailey's like, make out. And everyone's like, kiss, kiss, kiss. And they share a chaste peck. I was like, we don't need to make people kiss. But it was a moment for sure. It was a moment that happened.
And then there was, I think, both of our personal favorite moments
Yes.
of the entire thing, which is when Kathy corrected Brian on the use of me versus I. He asks her, why did you vote off Paresa and I? And Kathy says, it's not I,
She's
me.
like, it's Paresa and me.
And Brian has the gall to say, I think you're wrong on that. Brian, you moron.
She's like, I know that you think she's wrong. That's why you said it the wrong way first. Because you're doing it on vibes. A lot of people do this. You think, oh, it feels wrong to say me here. I should probably say I. We've all fallen prey to this.
Yes.
She's right. As she explains, she was an English major. She graduated summa cum laude. And it's a direct object. A direct object is always me and never I, Brian.
Thank you, Kathy, for this important lesson, for speaking out on behalf of all English majors.
Listen, Brian, it's okay. We can all stand to keep learning. Lifelong learning is so important. I probably make a million grammatical errors in every broadcast, but I'm willing to have Kathy on here. I'm willing to have Kathy on here to provide a live running commentary on my errors.
And when she gives me that feedback, I will say, you're right, Kathy.
You're right, Kathy. Thank you so much. Your English degree was worth it.
And on that note, that brings us to the end of this episode of Love to See It with Emma and Claire.
Love to See It is a presentation of Odyssey. The show is produced by us, Claire Fallon, and Emma Gray. This episode was edited by John Bahar. Our theme music is by Tamar Haviv, and our art is by Aaron Nestor.
If you like our show, remember to follow us, rate us 5 stars, leave a review, and of course, spread the word to all of your friends about Love to See It.
If you want to get in touch, you can email us at claireandemmapod@gmail.com.
You can also find us on TikTok at Love to See It Pod and on Instagram at Claire and Emma Pod. And you can find our newsletter Rich Text on Substack at claireandemma.substack.com. I'm also on Blue Sky at Emma Gray and on Instagram at Emma Lady Rose.
Special thanks to the team at Odyssey: Eric Donnelly, Kate Rose, Moira Curran, Melissa Wester, and Hillary Shook.
We'll be back soon.
Can you keep